Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Jethro Tull, entitled Curious Ruminant. They released that on March 7th. This is the 24th studio album for the British rock band, and their follow-up to 2023's Rock Flute. The band also released the Zilagene back in 2022, making it 3 records within a span of less than 4 years. Ian Anderson, cheers to you. He is such a legend, and since the turn of the decade has been incredibly prolific with this outfit. And I think it comes as a surprise to most people, including myself, because prior to releasing the Zilagene, it had been over 2 decades since the last proper Jethro Tull record, 1999's jtull.com. Now, I know that there's probably some of you saying they put out a Christmas record in 2003, and yes, I will admit that there's original material on that record, and I did just count it in the album total. But a proper record for me is something that you can listen to year-round. I am only listening to Christmas music around the Christmas season. And so that is just my personal opinion, to each their own with regards to that. And if you disagree, I'd love to start the debate in the comments section. Please feel free to share your thoughts on that. What I do know is that the spark is there. And I think it's so amazing. At the age of 77, there just aren't many musicians that go through an incredible creative phase like this. I just love this wave that he's riding, and it almost feels like it's never going to crash into shore. I really hope that there's a couple more records there, but 3 within this span of 4 years is something that I think all of us can appreciate and love. Ian Anderson, also the type to keep us grounded while taking us to fantastical worlds, and I love that as well. This recent interview that he gave, he says, if you've got a good idea for something, it's best to just get on with it. And I love that that spirit is driving him right now. He goes on to say, do it. Don't think about it too long. Get on and do it. He starts to talk about himself. He says, because I might not be that lucky. If I put it off and think, oh, well, maybe next year, who knows if my health condition, mentally, physically, will be any good. He's like, I have no way to predict. He says, but there's a time when I'm not going to be okay. And so I don't want to regret what I haven't done while I still couldn't do it. He still wants to be able to perform, do live shows, do everything that goes along with being one of the biggest rock stars, and I think one of the best songwriters in the contemporary period of music in the last 60 or 70 years. He really is one of a kind, a curious ruminant. And I want to pull this album cover back up because if you're familiar with the word, it has a couple of definitions, generally referring to hoofed animals with horns. There you go. But it's also a word that means meditative and contemplative. And that's really what his music has always been about. The lyrics are just so poetic. And again, they take you to this other world, this place of fantasy, whether it's, coming from some of your favorite books. I was a big Game of Thrones fan until the final season of the show and still waiting for those last few books. But I also think that his style reminds me of authors like Tolkien, like C.S. Lewis, even go back to a guy like Jonathan Swift. I think that the idea of speaking truth, talking about society, talking about politics, these issues that affect us every day, all of us, through the medium of fantasy is just one of the most incredible outlets. And it's something that I've always really appreciated from an artistic standpoint. I think Gulliver's Travels especially is one of the greatest pieces of literature out there when you think how it can be used as a children's tale, but how allegorical it is for us adults, and really what the meat of that content truly is about. There is, criticism there that is being levied, and, it's just so much fun to have creators like Ian Anderson and like all of the individuals that I just met providing us with these perspectives. The music is phenomenal, and I think really the only weak point here is that Ian Anderson's voice isn't what it once was, but he is 77 years old. What I appreciate about the record is that he's still working to his strengths. Instead of just belting out big vocal melodies, these lyrics feel like meditative, hushed whispers. And I really appreciate the way that he is conscious of that and working it to his strength. The first person that comes to mind for me is Bob Dylan, a guy that a lot of people I've heard over the years say doesn't have a good voice, but I disagree. I think that melodically, he works to his strength, and he has developed so many songs, so many records over the years that really display that. And so I'm loving that about the record. I love the late 70s folk sound that's kind of coming out of this record as well. This is an album that, from a prog rock standpoint, I feel like there's that drive, there's that element there, but there's moments where I really feel like I'm just back in the Renaissance with the level of mysticism that he's bringing to the table. He's also whimsical and funny, but he can be dark and moody. He's so complex. There's so many things that are pouring off this record, as you would expect from a Jethro Tull album. And so I love that. But, imagine if you could just take an electric guitar back to the 16th, 17th century and, have a jam session with all the people that are there. And that's really what I feel the mood of this record is. And it makes it a ton of fun to listen to. I think having pretty much the same players that he's had since they picked this project back up in 2017. The only new personnel here is Jack Clark. He's taken over for Joe Parrish. And so I think that, given that this has been a band that it really is Ian Anderson's project. I mean, there's just been a massive revolving door of musicians on this project for almost 6 decades now. I mean, this is a band that has had the likes of Tony Iommi and Phil Collins even. Like, I think it's so cool. All the people that have been involved with him over the years, and especially given that when you listen to a Jethro Tull record, when you drop the needle, for the first time, you don't always know what you're going to get. You're like, are you going to get the blues and jazz feel? Are you going to get the prog rock? Are you going to get the folk drive? It's always made this band so exciting, especially for those of you who aren't that familiar with them or are looking to get into the band. You're going to have a really good time. You just, like I said, you'll never know what is coming at you. So with that, I want to get into the track list here, read some lyrics because there's just some great content on this record. Your opening track, Puppet and the Puppet Master, opens with this cinematic and somber piano trickle. It's got this driving soft rock that's going to take over once that element dissipates. It's driven by flute. I really love the strength of that instrument on this record. I think that there's been times where it's taken a little bit of a back seat, but it's his staple. I mean, if you think about him and the logo, it's it's great to see how prominent that instrument is on this record. The vocal's going to enter and the flute drops, and in comes the accordion. That instrument's being used a lot on the record as well. I really appreciate that. You got this soft electric rock that takes center stage with the flute. And I just I love the movement with the vocals and that instrument. Lots of shifting and instrumentation, and that's something that I really think defines their sound as well. The exploration of a composition with all the different instrumentation that's at work. The back and forth, the way that some instruments will come to the forefront, others will take a back seat, and it's just giving each instrument its own place and time within a song, and they're doing that brilliantly here on this record. I want to read some of the lyrics on this song. Holding court on a black box stage, dangling from the strings, I twirl and face the music and the prompter in the wings. I feel like visually, I mean, those lines take you back. Those remind me of a time long ago, hundreds of years ago, but it's also imagery that is relevant now. They're lines that read into the present still. And again, his brilliance with regards to that is something that sets him apart from most songwriters, I would argue. I am both willing puppet master also, with lofty expectations set to pull me to and fro. I live only to serve, bring smiles to friendly faces, dancing on a sixpence, singing from a tree. With birds of a feather tripping high and low together, make everybody happy, starting with me. Please feel no sorrow or remorse. I dance willing only to a tune crafted by me, both captain and crew. In a black box cage, rattling its soft bars, Bendy steel two-part, I slip through to the stars, through the duskfall peeping me, unlikely lad, to paint a smile behind the mask. The pay is not too bad. I, the willing puppet, puppet master also. Lofty expectations set to pull me to and fro, fro and to and fro. I feel in a lot of ways contemplating his mortality, and everything that he has had the privilege of earning in his lifetime. I will say that this is I just cannot speak highly enough of the guy, and I think that there's a difference in opinion, and he's one to not really be bothered by it, but this is a band that belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You all need to get your shit together and make that happen before this man passes, because they are one of the most innovative, exceptional rock outfits out there, especially when you consider he doesn't really think of their music as Americana. But I think there's so many records, there's so many songs where there's such a blues drive, where there is that influence that like this band belongs in the hall. Just my opinion. Your second track, Curious Ruminant, the title track, it's got this dark piano that's going to open up a light acoustic rhythm. The all that's going to drop, and then the flute enters. I love the way that takes over. Just a big groovy chugging rhythm that's developed in this track. It enters to complement the flute element. The vocals are going to be backed by rhythm and this twinkly piano. Really, again, just great shifting back and forth, great movement in the composition. It's great hard rock with a gentle touch from production, and I feel like that's a big component of this record as well. I really like the moments where you feel the heaviness in the instrumentation, but the production keeps it light. I think it's incredibly well done. And a few lyrics from this song as well, because I'm a big fan. I count my life in seconds past, in meeting minutes, hours of glass. Days of quiet watching, thought bubble clouds, blow through the years, wondering aloud. Needle matches spark my fires, dissenting voices from steeple spires ring out across the woody hills, as brief as mad March daffodils, asking, why am I here? Answering, why am I anywhere? Orbiting construct of Jung and Freud, psycho-dreaming asteroid. No one writes like this in music anymore. It's like, I freaking love it. Faced with big questions, toss and turn, unfit to frolic, unconcerned, asking, why am I here? And he goes on, and the last line of the song, my ghostly whisper, cogito ergo sum, which is Latin for I think, therefore I am. Little reference to Descartes there. And just acknowledging the idea that yes, I am here, I am real, because I am conscious, I am aware of myself, the people in the world around me, and it's a beautiful song. I'm just a big fan of the lyrics there. Dunstan and Hill is your third track. Flute and accordion are going to open this song. Solo's going to work. A solo electric riff is going to work in behind all that, There's bits of percussion and bass that enter to build on the texture of this song. It's going to maintain this ballad sort of feel that I really enjoyed once the vocal hits as well. The song adopts a jovial and jaunty rhythm as it continues with more of that soft rock feel. Drums are much more prominent as the song progresses, and I really like the way that this song moves into the bridge and adopts a darker mood as well. There's a great contrast there. The Tipu House is your fourth track. Flute and everything comes out just ripping on this thing. Total change of pace from Dunstan and Hill. The rock is dominant with lots of soft textures. And then the flute is like a machine gun on this thing. I mean, he is just going to work with that instrument. It's going to mellow out at about 2 minutes. There's a flute solo there for a bit. And then about 45 seconds later, there's another great breakdown in that track. Structurally, just a lot of fun. Savannah of Paddington Green is your fifth song. It's a reference to a park. I believe it's in London, just right outside of London. But the idea here is, contemplating the industrial world around us and how so many of us, especially in the modern age, I think have come to a place where we've lost our respect for the natural world. We've lost the respect for the idea of what being outside, what nature does for our psyche, for our health, all of these things. It's crazy some of the conversations that I have had with younger people as far as, how much they're looking forward to the takeover of technology and machines. And it's just like, man, we live in such a different time, and it's unfortunate because I think it wasn't too long ago when life really was simpler and those values were there. And I just think that it's something that's been lost on a lot of people, and not even in just the younger generation. I would say there's a lot of people that have really allowed this shift into, I mean, I really call it kind of like the third industrial wave. You know, when you think about everything that we're trying to do with AI and just the removal of the human element from production, from everyday life, is in a lot of ways very sad. And so I love the lyrics on that track, focusing on it. It's, nature noises are going to usher in the song. It totally makes sense. You get a light acoustic and accordion element that's going to build in with the vocal. Drums build in behind that to create a more intense mood in this track. And I think that's important, conveying the urgency of this message, because time is running out with that regard. We can choose to move forward conscientiously, with that in mind, versus just cranking out plastics and all the other crap that we've put out into the world. Got this dissonant accordion element that breaks down, and I really like the way that works with the flute on this song. There's moments where the song feels kind of jarring, and again, I think given the content, it's really appropriate. Stygian Hand is your sixth song. It's a reference to the underworld there. Getting a little dark in mood here. You got this charging flute with light mandolin textures that are going to open. At least I think it's a mandolin. It might be an acoustic guitar. The texture is really soft, though. It was kind of hard to tell. But there's definitely a guitar that moves in to take hold, accordion driving this song as well, along with the vocal. It's simple but effective percussion. Really is a nice addition to the track. Brilliant movement in all the instrumentation, and just that traditional feel of the UK and Ireland. I really have always appreciated folk music from that part of the world, and I would argue that the folk traditions go back hundreds and hundreds of years, back to the Renaissance, back to medieval times even. Over Jerusalem is your seventh track. Light flute, xylophone, I think is what's at work here, and guitar. Vocal and a little bit of bass are going to enter after all of those introduce the track. This track is almost like a lullaby. It's just so gentle. It just kind of cradles you. Complementary percussion that's going to build in. The song evolves into more of a proggy track, though. I really like the soft rock style, especially with the electric guitar that works in. And as this song moves towards the back half, it's going to take more of a hard rock edge. I think that of all the tracks, this is one that probably the heaviest, so to speak. But that's coming from a band that knows really how to rock out and be heavy. They've definitely had their moments over the years. Drink from the Same Well is your eighth and penultimate track. Almost 17 minutes, just so much instrumental jamming in this track. And there are very few artists that I think are capable of putting together compositions like this, of this length. So really a special highlight on this record, and some great lyrics as well. I drink from the same well as you. I drink from the same well as you. Throng of disparate priestly spirits, wind blown, drift on the blood red sands. They cast a spell of early warning, no welcome shake of their blood-red hands. They drink from the same well as you. They drink from the same well as you. A nod, a wink from the neon bar in a sad backstreet of sweet lady boys. Defy the leer of phobic drunken macho men chanting football noise. I love that. They drink from the same well as you. Yes, and they drink from the same well as you. Draw the bucket, roll the dice. Call the coin, call it twice. Tell me which way you choose. Do I care? Yours to lose. I drink from the same well as you. Culture bending, message sending, shouts of river to the sea, displaying willful ignorance as to shifting tides of history. They drink from the same well as you. We lovers lost in doomed matrimony, cast adrift on an angry sea of angry words, vicious, vindictive, low-hanging fruit on Eve's poisoned tree. These lyrics are phenomenal. And chew it over, chew the cud. If you're familiar with that word cud, it is definitely a reference to the Ruminants, and I love that was there. I was waiting for it to happen given the title, and I'm glad that he delivered on that. But just a phenomenal track from this band to lead into your final song, Interim Sleep, which is got this soft bass drum, this droning flute element that's in the background, a little bit of acoustic guitar and other flute textures that back in, and then a spoken word track that's this is a song that's really meditative. When interim sleep takes me, I want you close beside. No tears, no sad goodbye. I am calm and still as a fallen autumn leaf when that interim sleep takes me. I will pass first into a room next door, not far away, nor lost to finer senses, nor gone forever, nor to be forgotten. And when your turn comes at last to close those waking eyes, pass willing to the room next door, seeking no blameless redemption. Walk to that open window, open to the stars. Look out down the winding river valley where lights sparkle, marking stations where trains start and stop. On the separate journeys of our many lives, high above the nearest empty station, flies a solitary bird faint in the higher distance. And he continues, and buy tickets, stow useless excess baggage to board the onward train, another journey. Ian Anderson, I hope it is sometime still before you part ways with all of us. And really, again, just a blessing to have him around. And the fact that he has just been able to make this comeback and continue making music is something that I appreciate so much. I hope you all appreciate it as well. I'm going to give this record an 8.1 out of 10. There's a lot to really love and enjoy about this album. There's a lot to really love and enjoy still about Jethro Tull. So I hope you enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up. You're going to vinyl please this thing as well. Can't wait to go to the record store. Stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews, and take care of one another. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.